Mark 47:4. Once more he proceeded to teach by the seaside. A crowd gathered round him greater than ever. So he entered a boat on the sea and sat down while all the crowd stayed on shore. He gave them many lessons in parables and said to them in the course of his teaching, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, it chanced that some seed fell on the road, and the birds came and ate it up. Some other seed fell on a stony soil where it had not much earth, and it shot up at once because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun rose, it was scorched and withered away because it had no root. Some other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked it, so it bore no crop. Some other seed fell on good soil to bear a crop that sprang up and grew, yielding at the rate of 30, 60, and 100-fold. He added, Anyone who has ears to hear, let him listen to this. When he was by himself, his adherents and the 12 asked him about the parable, and he said to them, The open secret of the realm of God is granted to you, but these outsiders get everything by way of parables, so that for all their seeing they may not perceive, and for all their hearing they may not understand, lest they turn and be forgiven. And he said to them, You do not understand this parable. And he said to them, You do not understand this parable. Then how are you to understand the other parables? The sower sows the word. As for those on the road, when the seed is sown there, as soon as they hear it, Satan at once comes and carries off the word sown within them. Similarly, those who are sown on stony soil are the people who are hearing the word, accept it with enthusiasm, but they have no root in themselves. They do not last. The next thing is when the word brings trouble or persecution, they are at once repelled. Another set are those who are sown among thorns. They listen to the word, but the worries of the world and the delight of being rich and all the other passions come in to choke the word, so it proves unfruitful. As for those who were sown on good soil, these are the people who listen to the word and take it in, bearing fruit at the rate of 30, 60, and 100-fold. He also said to them, Is a lamp brought to be placed under a bowl or a bed? Is it not to be placed upon the stand? Nothing is hidden except to be disclosed, nothing concealed except to be revealed. If anyone has an ear to hear, let him listen to this. Also he said to them, Take care what you hear. The measure you deal out to others will be dealt out to yourselves, and you will receive extra. For he who has, to him shall more be given, while as for him who has not, from him shall be taken even what he has. He said, It is with the realm of God as when a man has sown seed on earth. He sleeps at night and rises by day, and the seed sprouts and shoots up, he knows not how. For the earth bears crops by itself, the blade first, the ear of corn next, and the grain full in the ear. But whenever the crop is ready, he has the sickle put in at once as harvest is come. He said also, To what can we compare the realm of God? How are we to put it in a parable? It is like a grain of mustard seed, less than any seed on earth when it is sown on earth, but once sown it springs up to be larger than any plant, throwing out such big branches that wild birds can roost under its shadow. In many a parable like this, he spoke the word to them so far as they could listen to it. He never spoke to them except by way of parable, but in private he explained everything to his own disciples. That same day, when evening came, he said to them, Let us cross to the other side. So leaving the crowd, they took him just as he was in the boat, accompanied by some other boats. But a heavy squall of wind came on, and the waves splashed into the boat so that the boat filled. He was sleeping on the cushion in the stern, so they woke him up, saying, Teacher, are we to drown for all you care? And he woke up, checked the wind, and told the sea, Peace, be quiet. The wind fell, and there was a great calm. Then he said to them, "Why are you afraid like this? Have you no faith yet?" But they were overawed and said to each other, "Whatever can he be when the very wind and sea obey him?" And wait, 5. And they preached. No, Then they reached the opposite side of the sea, the country of the Gerasenes. And as soon as he stepped out of the boat, a man from the tombs came to meet him, a man with an unclean spirit who dwelt among the tombs. By this time no one could bind him, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with fetters and chains, and had snapped the chains and broken the fetters. Nobody could tame him. All night and all day among the tombs and the hills he shrieked and gashed himself with stones. On catching sight of Jesus from afar, he ran and knelt before him, shrieking aloud, "Jesus, Son of God Most High, what business have you with me? By God, I adjure you, do not torture me." For he had said, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he said, "there is a host of us." And they begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a large drove of swine was grazing there on the hillside, so the spirits begged him, "Send us into the swine that we may enter them." And Jesus gave them leave. Then out came the unclean spirits and entered the swine, and the drove rushed down the steep slope into the sea. There were about 2,000 of them. And in the sea they were drowned. The herdsmen fled and reported it to the town and the hamlets. So the people came to see what had happened, and when they reached Jesus, they saw the lunatic sitting down, clothed and in his sober senses, the man who had been possessed by legion that frightened them, and those who had seen it related to them what had happened to the lunatic and the swine. Then they began begging Jesus to leave their district. As he was stepping into the boat, the lunatic begged that he might accompany him, but he said, "Go home to your own people and report to them all the Lord has done for you, and how he took pity on you." So he went off and began to proclaim throughout Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him. It made everyone astonished. Now when Jesus had crossed back in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him. So he remained beside the sea. A president of the synagogue called Jairus came up, and on catching sight of him, fell at his feet with earnest entreaties. "My little girl is dying," he said. Do come and lay your hands on her, that she may recover and live." So Jesus went away with him. Now a large crowd followed him. They pressed around him, and there was a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years. She had suffered much under a number of doctors, and had spent all her means, but was none the better. In fact, she was rather worse. Hearing about Jesus, she got behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. "If I can touch even his clothes," she said to herself, "I will recover." And at once the hemorrhages stopped. She felt in her body that she was cured of her complaint. Jesus was at once conscious that some healing virtue had passed from him. So he turned around to the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "You see the crowd are pressing around you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept looking around to see who had done it. And the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came forward in fear and trembling and fell down before him, telling him all the truth. "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be free from your complaint." He was still speaking when a message came from the house of the synagogue president. "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher to come any further?" Instantly Jesus ignored the remark and told the president, "Have no fear, only believe." He would not allow any to accompany him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. So they reached the president's house, where he saw a tumult of people wailing and making shrill lament. And on entering, he asked them, "Why make a noise and wail? The child is not dead, but asleep." They laughed at him. However, he put them all outside, and taking the father and mother of the child as well as his companions, he went in to where the child was laying. Then he took the child's hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which may be translated, "Little girl, rise, I tell you." The girl got up at once and began to walk. She was 12 years old. And At once they were lost in utter amazement. But he strictly forbade them to let anyone know about it and told them to give her something to eat. That's it. Oh, shit, that's the wrong pencil. Oh, hold on. We'll stop this.